Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com Iowa Cup Series. It's the Sunday show. Should be a very exciting and entertaining race, but it will likely drive you crazy in DFS because the tires are too damn hot. The track is too damn fast. We are expecting tire failures. We are expecting cautions, madness. And if that's the case, then we are probably going to chase place differential from the guys in the back for our value. You can probably pay up for place differential as well. Everyone should be able to hang on to the lead lap if we're only running 20 laps at a time. Probably get some madness on restarts, a race of attrition. And projection-wise, anyone really can come through. And you're going to see guys with not really good speeds in practice. I would not really overreact to that from our value drivers. We just want guys that are going to survive and finish the race. Good luck predicting who that will be. But as you can see on the screen, any of these guys, I have no fault in playing any of them. Really, but they don't have speed. Actually, speed might be detrimental if you're driving too fast, too hard. Your tire might go down. You may get yourself into a bit of a pickle. And I don't think you can rule out any of the value drivers, and hopefully you pick the right one as far as that goes. Now, there are going to be drivers that lead laps and drivers that are fast. So what would be the strategy for picking those drivers at the front that, yeah, they had speed in practice? Well, the thing that I would look at in the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet, which you can get at racefortheprize.com, or all you simply need to do is just Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, send the money over. I'll share the sheet immediately with you. It's in the description below. What I would look at if you're using the spreadsheet to try to find, well, who maybe has speed that has an edge. Another thing that is worth mentioning, if we're expecting a lot of cautions, then pit road is going to be vital. And you don't necessarily need the spreadsheet to know what are the best pit crews. And you can use that. I have that data. But the reality is the drivers that are finishing up front every single week, guess what? They typically have the best pit crews. So if you're familiar with the good drivers, then you are also more than likely familiar with the best pit crews. And they typically are on the best teams. Anyway, if I'm trying to identify speed, I would look at the raw data and look at the laps and then really just look at what they did on their final run and see kind of what they were averaging speed-wise. So we look late in practice because we saw them get faster. And as Bell mentioned during his tire test, speed just picks up and picks up and picks up. So we really want to see, what did you do in your last run? What was your speed? If we're trying to differentiate between who we think will be the fastest, and we can look kind of the last 5-6 laps for Larson, 23.37. We're going to look at Blaney's last run and kind of compare that real quick and grab some laps. Look at his average, 23.46. So a little bit slower, no surprise there. And you can flip through any of these guys on your Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. You would have liked to have seen a little bit more speed out of Brad Keselowski. We won't get that lap where he clicked down, but 23.4. But we're probably not projecting him to be the fastest all throughout the race, but is he fast enough to hang in there? I think he absolutely is. And I don't really need to see everything out of him. He's run a ton of laps with the testing session. Tyler Reddick, not really checking the box for a guy that was really fast into the practice. Maybe that would worry you a little bit, but a little bit earlier. But again, not a true comparison because we're looking a little towards not the end of practice. Now, you could look at Chase Elliott and see how he has some off laps here and there, but overall, the speed's checking out to be in that 23.3 range right there with Larson and with Blaney. We'll look at Hamlin, another driver, runs a Q run at the end. Again, not the dead end of practice, a tad slower. But if this is a strategy race and a management race, then I think it doesn't really matter what he did at the very end of a practice session. But that's something that you could look at. Another guy that also kind of exhibited or demonstrated that speed late in a run. So we said Larson was 23.37. We got Bowman on his final run late in practice with a 23.4. That would be one way I would. Obviously, I don't think Bowman is going to be a hog or dominator starting in the back, but you really like the speed that he had. And I think that would be a good strategy and a way to use the spreadsheet to try to identify the drivers that you think are going to lead the most laps. Again, a lot's going to come down to pit road. There's so many variables at play that it is very difficult for anyone to predict or project what is going to happen. But my general stance is that we are going to see plenty of cautions, plenty of wrecks, plenty of attrition. And if that's the case, really any of these drivers are in play. But obviously, you want to have some sort of lean. I like Larson. I like Hamlin, the guys that do it week in, week out. Uh, Blaney's going to be there in the mix for me. I think Brad Keselowski hangs on. I don't think he necessarily is going to be the guy that is absolutely crushing the entire race. And then if we're looking in the back, I know that you're going to really want to say, oh, well, this guy, Corley Joy, had a little bit more speed. But at the end of the day, the better play could simply be Daniel Hemrick because he just doesn't wreck. And Daniel Hemrick often doesn't provide a lot of value because he doesn't hang on to the lead lap. But how long do we think these runs are going to happen? And if we do actually get cars going laps down, we're going to get cautions. We're going to get wave arounds. We're going to get lucky dogs. And so really, we're just hoping to predict the drivers that survive. And I don't fault anyone for loading up on place differential in this race because we could see lap leaders go down. We saw in the Xfinity race guys that were faster than everybody in practice, faster in the race, and they weren't safe at the end either. Is anyone safe? Probably not. And so if we end up with a line with 5 place differential and just one driver who leads a significant amount of laps and wins the race, I would not be surprised. I think we're, again, it's hard to project or predict anything, but I think my biggest takeaway, my biggest thing of advice, if you want to look at the speed, then I kind of give you the strategy there of trying to identify maybe some of the drivers that you think are going to lead laps and run fast laps. But other than that, I really believe that you're just going to load up on these guys in the back. And there are guys in the back that are good. Obviously Truex, Gibbs are more than likely and have a higher probability rate of finishing in the top 10 and surviving the race. But from our value, it could be any one of these drivers. And so at the end of the day, you may lean towards someone who had a little bit more speed in practice, but really it's just the guy that started furthest in the back. Thanks for joining me. Have a good day. Happy Father's Day.